Welcome to Afterburner, friends. Happy Saturday afternoon to you. It is the two Ryans as well as producer Yasmin here following another Flames shutout loss, their second consecutive shutout loss today at the hands of the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Ryan, good afternoon. It is the odd weekend start time. The always treacherous old Southeast Division swing. It's been a lot of years of them doing the Florida, Tampa, Carolina. You add a little Washington in there, finish off with Dallas. It's this has not been terribly fun for the Flames, who started out this road trip 1-0 with a great victory in Washington.
I remember when it used to be called the Southeast Division, and we all sort of had a good laugh at the expense of the Atlanta Thrashers and others, but now they're regularly winning championships and generally looking very good. And the Flames were ungood this afternoon.
They were. We'll get to it in a moment. A reminder, this program is brought to you by our great friends at Bet365. It is the world's largest sports betting platform. You got to love that. All kinds of markets, a huge range of markets, they say, you can bet on. Download that app. Use the code NATION when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Also, we are doing the Super Chats. That's the horns.
I like the horn.
The horns, very good. Our Super Chats are in support of the Youth Centers of Calgary, an incredible initiative with, I believe, a second location opening soon, if not already, in our fair city. Safe place for kids to go after school before families get home, whether it's a warm meal, a little time to read, playing sports with pals, making friends, learning an instrument. All kinds of amazing things are happening at the Youth Centers of Calgary. So all our Super Chat dollars will be funneled directly to them. 3-0. Those are the last two games the Calgary Flames have played, Pike. They went out and addressed some scoring issues when adding Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, but they still can't score with much ease.
They got some depth. I think if you look at sort of in the aggregate, the Pelche and Kuzmenko, for those two guys swap, you go, okay, that probably conceptually gives you a bit more offensive punch. It allows you to sort of spread out the offense a bit more. Good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't worked out that way the last couple of games.
Yeah. And look, they went into the blender in the third period. I know they had a minor tweak swapping Zary and Sharon Govich into the game. By the end, it was they had Kadri and the kids again. It was Pospisil, Zary, and Kadri late in the third. Mackenzie Weegar was tracking for a half hour of ice time. This team was up against it tonight, and at one point we're being outshot 36-9 with 3 minutes left in the second period. You're talking a 4-to-1 ratio.
There was a stretch in the second period where I think the live betting on Bet365 might have been some version of what happens first, 10 Flame shots or 30 Panther shots. And the answer was it was 30 Panther shots.
Yeah, it was 26-7 at one point, 32-8, then 36-9. This was a game where the Flames struggled mightily to create offense. And if not for a just sensational effort from their netminder, Dan Vladar, this could have looked like, one of those nights where you're reminded why all the pundits and sports books had the Calgary Flames around 80 points and outside of the playoffs.
I think we anticipated seeing a few games like this season, probably more than we've seen. The Flames have only been shut out 4 times this year. As Cammie and I noted after the Tampa game, it's 2 games against Vegas, both on the road, a game against Tampa on the road, and a game against Florida. So in the aggregate, if you look at on paper and say, all right, you're going to get shut out 4 times.
4 cup contenders.
Yeah, like you're on the road against teams that are on paper, on the ice, better than the Calgary Flames. You go, okay. And your probably question would be, okay, did they look okay in those losses? And the answer for this one was not especially.
They look better against Tampa. Is that fair? You'd agree with that?
Yeah, I think.
Because and again, that's probably not a bold statement. They did not look good today.
Yeah,
the goaltender was definitely covering up a lot of issues, and I thought Wolf was very good on Thursday. But at least it felt like they had some more chances.
There's a comment that sticks in my mind, and I forget when Huskin made it, but it's very recently on Flames TV, just discussing sort of, the Flames performances this year. And he brought up sort of, there's been a couple of games he singled out that the Flames did not look like the Calgary Flames. Like the Flames because they don't have difference-making offensive players, have to play a team game.
Yeah.
And because of that, you basically have to play a very patient game, play with structure, play with some nerve, because
get goaltending.
Yeah, but you gotta support the goaltender. You gotta play counterpunch hockey, and you gotta wait for the other team to make mistakes. And so you have to have some discipline and some patience and some nerve to play that way. And the 2 games that they didn't was that road loss against Utah, where they completely abandoned ship in terms of what they were doing, and that 8-3 home loss against Tampa, where they just looked horrible in the second half of that game. And I don't think I put this game quite in that category, because I thought they had a reasonably good first period. They didn't give up too much, but that second period might be as bad a 20 minutes of hockey I've seen them play all year, just in terms of the things they need to do well and do consistently to be effective. They just completely abandoned.
Outshot 19-6 in the second period, and both goals in the second. There could have been a third. There was obviously the goal reviews that we saw, but Dan Vladar in the second. I mean, Vladar on Verhaeghe, Vladar Rob Schmidt, Vladar grabs loose puck off the goal line, Vladar paddle on the goal line, Vladar pad stack glove, which turned out to be in the net, but then they ruled a goaltender interference. I mean, some of this is a little bit of the Dan Vladar, I'm not always in exactly the right position, street goalie style, but we're talking about 5 bell saves, incredible stops. Yasmin's got a highlight reel of the saves. Let's
just Farabee. Panthers get their first, however,
and 20 or better. This adds to that list, and you factor this in with the Washington start, and you're like, all right, now does that mean that he's a person of interest with the trade deadline on Friday? I'm not so sure about that, but it is a reminder that yes, this guy who has been rather pedestrian for large swaths of his time in Calgary can be great in spells, and it looks like he's in the midst of one of those right now. I believe it's 4 or 5 that he's been quite good.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Vladar's usage has been Dan Vladar's usage. He was 50-50 the first half of the season, and then it seemed that the Flames made the decision. All right, it's Dustin, you're the guy.
Yeah.
Here's the sash, here's the scepter, here's the crown. Go nuts. And being a backup can be a tough gig, especially if you think you're better than that. Or I think, if you're Vladar, I don't even know, I'm not going to put thoughts in his head, but if you came to the season and they said, hey, the guy who took all your starts last year, the year before, he's gone. So you got a chance to have your dream job. And I imagine it's probably challenging to not get your dream job in the, basically lose your dream job in slow motion and still have to go to work and be professional. And I can't commend him enough for how well he's comported himself this year. And when he's gotten a chance to play, it's been in classic backup situations, most outside of this night or this afternoon, second half of back-to-backs, predominantly on the road, predominantly against monstrous opposition.
Yeah.
And he has not been given a lot of run support. He has not been given, I would argue, the best Flames teams in front of him. But I'll give him a lot of credit. He's done his level best. He's worked his absolute butt off to give the team a chance to get points. And I think at the end of the year, I think now he's at 8. His record's 8-11-5. I think if you look at the 16 games that he did not win, I don't know if there's much more he could have done. Like, there might be 2 or 3 you go, oh man, Dan wasn't as good as he's been in the past. But for the most part, I mean, this is 24 appearances for him this season, and I think we've seen probably 21s where he was good to pretty good, and probably I'd say like 5 or 6 where he's been really, really good. But I guess the problem is, if for him to have become the starter this year, he probably would have needed to be really, really good in half his starts, if not more.
Yeah, and it's not just a starter. He's a free agent. If you have a good year this year and can go to market, that can change, the echelon of salary you have. He hasn't exactly ran with that opportunity the way that Wolf did, not in a contract year for Wolf, but in his first chance to sort of grab a crease and be a number one. Now, that doesn't mean they can't go back to Vladar for a little bit. I imagine it'll be Wolf tomorrow against Carolina. Both teams will be playing the second half of a back-to-back, as I believe Carolina has Edmonton tonight. We'll get more to that with Bet365 and some of the night games tonight. But you'd anticipate Wolf tomorrow, and then I guess you're watching performance at that point before you decide who plays in Philly and who plays in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it could be a 3-3 road trip in the sense that 3 for Vladar, 3 for Wolf.
I think Vladar has earned himself a bit more leash, a bit more runway. But the reason why the Flames did 50-50 at the beginning of the year was I think they probably thought it was unfair to just give a job to someone and say it's your net, because I think they wanted both guys to have a chance to get that. But
it was working too. The competition really
that's the thing, because I think the big thing we've heard from the Flames, you heard it under Brad Treliving, you've heard it under Craig Conroy, the push from below. The idea being that if you're not fully comfortable in your spot, not that, you don't want to be on your toes too much, but if you feel like you got to perform because you got someone behind you, it keeps you sharp. Iron sharpens iron. And I thought in net this year, that's what, when they were exceptionally strong in net, that's because, you had Vladar to push Wolf. You had Wolf to make Vladar feel like he had to battle to earn his time, and it worked. And I think the challenge right now for the Flames is you're sort of in the dog days of the season. If you look at the lineup, you look at the roster, I think they've made the internal moves they can make to sort of shuffle things around. I don't know if we're anticipating them doing very much between now and the end of the season.
We'll get to it.
To be charitable to the Wranglers. If you look at the Wranglers roster, they had Kyler Kupka playing top 6 minutes last game, and Kyler Kupka, most famous for those of you who follow the South Carolina Stingrays of the East Coast League. He's they've been picked kind of dry for the Wranglers. So I don't know if there's anyone on the Wranglers outside of maybe one or two guys you might get a look at later on that is necessarily knocking on the door to steal a spot from below. So I think we're at the point now where the team is the team, and they've got to find out ways in games like this to hang around and to try to steal it. They got goaltending that's capable of stealing the game for them today. I argue it did. They probably could have been down by 4 or 5 after 2 periods.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Vladar gave them a chance to win. They couldn't create anything offensively.
The only thing they had, like the penalty kill was good and the goaltending was good. Yeah. Nothing else on their team was really working that well.
I do have to ask you, what is this a look? What do we got? You got headphones on. You're not wearing them on your ears. They're just hanging around your neck. Yeah. So you're at the bus stop.
I can hear you.
Looking cool.
You good here.
It's true. Maybe the highlights playing. You could use them if you want. That's fine. Okay. Just checking in, Pike. You know me. I want to say a big hello and a welcome back to our good pal Derek Newman of the Derek Newman Group with CIR Realty. If you're buying or selling your home, let Derek do the work for you. You can email him at dnewman@cirrealty.ca or give him a call, 403-619-6661. Call him right now. Be like, Newman, I got to talk to you about my house, but first, what the hell's going on with these Flames? They can't score. He's a Flames fan. I'll talk with you. Then he can help you with your house. Buying or selling, he can do it all, Pike. Complimentary in-house home staging consultation as well. Whether it's your first purchase or you're a savvy, grizzled home buyer or seller, he'll take the time to understand your goals and get it right. And also he'll do some pre-listing consultation. Ooh, what's the market doing? What are we looking at here? Check him out and make sure you say hello. Let him know you heard it on Afterburner. Also, he's had the ability to find markets before they even hit the market. I saw him pull a little fast to an elbow park 6 months ago with something that didn't even get to the market. Incredible stuff. If you are buying or selling in the greater Calgary area, contact Derek, 403-619-6661. And he'll make it easy for you. Get Derek putting his network to work for you. That's Derek, the Derek Newman Group with CIR Realty. Okay, so we talked about Dan Vladar, great start. We've talked about this lack of offense. That's 3 goals in 3 games on this road trip. Not ideal. Offense.
They're all in the same game too.
They all were in the same game. You could also say 0 goals in the last 2 games, Pike. That's a fair point. They also haven't scored a power play goal on the road trip. I heard the broadcaster noting early on, haven't got a power play goal yet on the roadie. 0 for the roadie so far. That's a trend they're going to want to end because it's a team they're going to face tomorrow in Carolina that if you get opportunities in the man advantage, that's a very small area where you might be able to create offense against a very good team and traditionally a strong defensive club.
Yeah, I believe this is kind of a unique back-to-back because they're playing, I think, the top 2 possession teams in the National Hockey League back-to-back, and both playing the back-to-back on the road. So you already sort of got a built-in disadvantage. According to Natural Stat Trick, the Panthers are the 2nd best team in the NHL in expected goals percentage. Carolina is number 1, and they're about almost a full percentage point better than Florida. So, yeah, could be. I think Dustin Wolf will need to be good on Sunday because the underlying situation does not look good for the Red team.
It would certainly be, before the season started, a portion of the schedule you'd circle and say, this is going to be incredibly challenging. We didn't know Washington was going to be good. And through this mark of the schedule, they have been very good. I don't think they were at their best, but kudos to the Flames for getting a win there. Like I said, every time you do the old Florida swing, on the road, it's a tough slog, especially when you got to tack on Carolina to these two Florida teams that combined have won like 3 of the last 6 cups, something like that.
Something like that.
It's not easy at all. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. Vladar, I know people are going to want to talk about it, so we'll bring it up. If there's a team that needs a goalie, and there are some teams out there that are looking at goalies, if they see Dan Vladar playing like this, does that change anything for you? Because I know coming into the year, there was a lot of talk about Dan Vladar being a UFA and a potential rental that they could sell at the deadline. I understand the Cooley and the American League team, that argument of that keep him there. He's crucial to it. And if they get some bodies back later, that's a team that could go on a run, albeit a rough stretch they just played. But also, if you can get some assets for a guy that's going to likely walk this summer anyway, like where are you at on the possibility of Vladar moving before Friday, or what he might even be worth at this point? Because today doesn't hurt, at least.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I mean, I think the challenge is there's better goalies and or other goalies available in the market that might cost you less. I mean, I think the big challenge for Vladar is he doesn't play very much. And so the sample size, even with this season, is still fairly small for him. For a guy who's coming up on his 27th birthday, he hasn't played a ton of hockey. So that can cut both ways. If you're a goalie department and you're looking to get someone long-term, which you probably aren't at the trade deadline, but you look at him and go, like, I'd say with Devin Cooley, for example, guy of a similar age with almost, very little NHL experience, some moderate pro experience. He went to college, but you can look at Cooley's fundamentals and go, oh man, he's so good. And he hasn't played a lot. Imagine once our goalie coaches get a hold of him, what he can turn into.
And he's a third of the cost to Dan Vladar.
And a third of the cost to Dan Vladar. With Vladar, though, I mean, Vladar hasn't played a ton, and has an injury history, and he's in his, he's coming up on free agency. I would just be questioning, like, okay, what do you think you're getting for him? Because he's definitely shown the ability to be excellent in chunks. Yeah. And I think the challenge is the reason why he's potentially on his way out, whether as a free agent or in the trade market, is simply because he hasn't been able to put together long enough stretches to really steal a job.
I'd agree entirely. And look, like, all these teams have goalie departments. They all value the position a little bit differently. Goalie coaches have guys that they keep their eyes on, they like around the league. There could be a team that really likes Dan Vladar, and maybe you could get a late pick for him. But what you always caution me is, like, what's the cost to the organization of bringing Devin, not Logan Cooley, up to play, and now leaving Walter Ignatieff and an ECHL, or
especially the idea, like, Cooley, since he came back from his upper body injury, has sort of been all over the place. He's sort of had a couple good games, but he's been, he's had some rougher games. Probably if you plotted out his performances on the year, some of his worst outings this season have been since the injury. As we've seen, we saw Jacob Markstrom have an upper body injury,
and the team struggled more too, right?
It's sort of a team that's everything's sort of off kilter. And so if you think that, okay, you want the Wranglers to go on a long playoff run, how much do you hurt them by pulling Cooley out? And does that factor in? Maybe, if a team thinks that Dan Vladar is an upgrade over their current backup or their current 3, does that factor in? Because do you want a goalie back? Like, there's a lot of things that play into it. I think the other thing would be, this will age me, but I remember one of the first trade deadlines I covered was when Brian Burke was the interim GM, and he very famously turned down trades for Mike Camilleri.
That was his story. I'm not sure I take him at full face value there, as it was a very late developing deadline, and things were coming right down to the wire. And maybe if I missed by a minute, I can start telling you the story about, we can't set prices too low. It's like, well, you're going to be gone as a GM in a month anyway. You're hiring a GM. Yeah. But the next GM doesn't inherit what you traded.
The concept that you don't want to negotiate against yourself. You don't want to sort of make people go. And I think negotiating yourself is much more of a thing with contracts than with trades. But, if you set the precedent that, like, we'll give you anything, whatever you want for whatever, once it gets a certain time on Friday, like, I think you want to be wary about setting a market against yourself. But at the same time, you also need picks. Like, this is the kind of situation.
Here's where I'm at. I'd rather have the 5th rounder than not. Just generally speaking, because that's the guy that could turn into a good player. Like, you've seen Mangiapane in the 6th, Wolf in the 7th, Gaudreau in the 4th. Like, they don't all hit clearly, but you can still find a player. Well, maybe he's a player, maybe he's not. with later picks. So if you can get one, go get it. But I'm not holding my breath for high value for him. I know they gave up a third years ago for him. Maybe you see more injuries in the next week and he continues to play well and that changes things. But I think it's a low probability gets moved for a lot of things you're saying. And what I just laid out. Yeah.
I think it's also the challenge is like, say, okay, once the trade deadline's over, you can play fun and games with your roster. And I think we see a lot of teams, teams carry, there's no roster limit. You're only limited by the cap space you have and your 4 non-emergency recalls.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, this teams kind of play fast and loose with the recall limit. It's sort of a limit that's not really a limit. It's a dumb rule. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But who's carrying 3 goalies? You can carry 8 defensemen or however many forwards, and they can get regular practice reps.
3 goalies,
but there's only 2 nets.
Yeah.
So carrying 3 goalies, you're basically going to have one guy being cold entirely to begin with. So even if you were sort of on the fence about getting Vladar, you have to be really, really confident that he's better than your 2.
Yeah, you're only trading for him if he's an upgrade on your roster. I agree with that entirely. Speaking of the trade deadline, Daily Faceoff has got you covered for trade deadline coverage. Man, this is gonna be fun. Now, have you been tapped? Have you been talked to about being a Calgary correspondent for said show?
I think I'm on call.
Leave that board up. Yes,
I've been told to be available, but I don't know if I'm going to be on necessarily. It depends what they do.
It is indeed next Friday, this coming Friday, Hawaiian T-shirt day and the trade deadline. That'll be a 9 a.m. start for Daily Faceoff deadline show. It is the best trade deadline coverage period. That'll run till 2 p.m. That's an hour after the deadline, and that does give you a little bit of time for some of those buzzer beaters for the paperwork to get through the central registry. We almost always see deals leaking out after the alleged deadline is passed, but that they process it in the league just in time. So it'll be fun. Also here on Barn Burner, the main show, we'll be doing stupid coverage of the trade deadline. Because back to that board, Yasmin, if you see at the bottom what Frank, Tally Remchuk, and all those great folks are doing, that's the best trade deadline coverage period. On Barn Burner, we're going to have the dumbest trade deadline coverage period.
Yeah, they did a hell of a job with their Four Nations coverage, so I'm pretty excited to see what they do with the deadline, especially considering that I imagine the travel involved with this will be a lot easier than the travel they had to go through with Four Nations.
No question. Speaking of trades, we have a couple today. I want to weigh in with you on these. Let's start with the Minnesota Wild and Nashville Predators swinging a deal. Gustav Nyquist is heading to Minnesota. Half the salary retained, I believe, is what we were told from the Nashville Predators, eating half before the trade. And Nyquist becomes a Wild forward. He had a great offensive year last year that really wasn't sustainable. Still a good offensively creative player. Not overwhelming, but the Wild are in tough. Hartman suspension, Kaprizov injury, Eriksson out. It's a club that just has had their forward ranks battered of late. And they are going to be a playoff team in my mind in that incredibly competitive Central where Winnipeg has been sensational. Dallas and Colorado look like cup contenders. They're just trying to hang on here until they can get Kaprizov back.
I really like this trade for Minnesota. I mean, Nyquist, 35, him at half price is a pretty good bargain. And, he's a guy that can sort of fill up a lot of the defensive responsibilities for your team and allow guys who are a little bit younger to take care of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's, his age, you're glad you don't have a long-term commitment, but a second for a guy that'll solve a lot of your away from the puck issues is pretty good. I mean, if you're the Wild though, I mean, this is one of those moves where I think you make it and go, okay, well, they have no first now. This is their 26th second. So they have no first and no third this year. So they have 1 pick in the first 3 rounds this year. Now they're down to 2 in the next, in the first 3 rounds, the next 2 drafts after that. So especially this year, if you're the Wild, I think you see the performances you've gotten in net from Kaprizov when he's healthy, the blue line, like they have one of the more underrated young blue lines in the league.
Yeah, Faber's been awesome.
And if you bring in the right older players to complement them, like Gustav Nyquist, I really like this move. And it screams, okay, we think we're a contender if we're fully healthy.
We're going to help this group now until we get healthy. And then I think you'll see the best version of the Minnesota Wild. Another thing to remember with the Wild, they're paying cap hits of, I think, $12 to $15 million a year for the buyouts of Parise and Suter still. Next year, they drop to like 1.6 million or something incredibly low. So that's a team that's essentially been working with a 15% penalty on the cap for like 5 years. They're efficient. They've locked up their young players. They did that with Boldy. They've done it with Faber. They're going to be active in free agency, and that's a group that has been efficient with their money because they've had to be. And the cap growth, I think the Wild are going to be making some moves this offseason with that newfound, I guess, some brown bills in the wallet.
And like, who are the significant guys? I'm looking at Puckpedia right now.
Yeah, free agents.
Yeah, for
Marner, Rantanen.
Or I'm just thinking just for the Wild, like they have Spurgeon locked up, Brodin locked up, Middleton, Bogosian, like who are they got Brock Faber's new deal starting next year, but you're heading into the last year of Jurasik. Maybe you can get him going. You don't really have anyone who's really important. Like Marc-Andre Fleury's done this year, but he's retiring.
And they've got Wallstead. They're going to call up from Iowa.
They have.
It's a good system. They draft well.
Everyone important is signed. I think Marco Rossi is the most significant player who needs a new deal, and they're still figuring him out. So I don't think like there's someone that could go and just go shopping this summer.
Yeah, big time. I agree. Let's move to the other trade we saw today. This one even bigger, involving a lot of pieces. The Colorado Avalanche continue to tinker. We saw the massive Rantanen blockbuster that I think shook the foundation of the hockey world when they got Marty Necas back. Here's one where they send out Kelvin DeHaan and Juuso Parssinen, the former Nashville Predator, and they bring in Ryan Lindgren at half retention, Jimmy Vesey, and the rights to Hank Kempf, who I believe is a college player that has not obviously inked if he's playing in college.
Yeah, and they get two guys and
is
two
in college or is in Europe.
He's in college.
Thank you. Okay, confirming that. So, not a big Hank Kempf guy yet, but maybe I will become one. Maybe the Avs will too. They continue to overhaul a team that, boy, you love the top end of the Avs, and they've slowly started to fill out their depth with these other trades. The Carolina deal, they get 2 players back. What is it? Jack Drury's playing center ice in the third, fourth line there. Now another, solid defenseman in Lindgren, VC depth forward. I still think that they haven't looked that great in large swaths when you compare them to Winnipeg and Dallas. But man, Colorado scares the hell out of me if it's a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think the challenge is like they can beat you in so many different ways. Like I don't love Lindgren. He hasn't had a good year, but a lot of Rangers haven't had a good year. It's just
correct.
Not a lot's gone well there. It's like Vancouver East, but Lindgren, when he's in the right role, can be really good. He seems like a guy that can play in a lot of different situations. VC is pretty versatile too. He really anchors your bottom 6, and all of a sudden now you do have the ability to, grind out series in a lot of different ways. So, I think it makes them a more versatile team. I think they'd wish, I don't think they gave up much in terms of scoring in this transaction. And they ended up getting some guys that sort of shore up some perceived weaknesses. So,
sure.
I think it's a good move for the Avs and for, if you're the Rangers, guys who weren't going to come back.
Yeah, that's fair.
The old Ryan Pinder, if you're not staying here, we want to get something for you special. So
me, you trade me? What?
You were just saying about Dan Vladar.
Yeah, okay.
You got to get something.
I just thought I was getting traded. I just thought I heard it up right on Afterburner
you have a crippling no move clause here.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, debilitating boat anchor of a contract. That's what I need here. This is great. It's too close to my house. I can't not do this. Let's get those are the trades today. And a reminder again that daily Faceoff trade deadline coverage. Be on the lookout for that. 9 until 2 Mountain on Friday. And of course, Barn Burner runs in there as well. We'll be doing goofy, dumb stuff as well. If the Flames are making moves, we'll be all over that. And for the league coverage, Daily Faceoff does an incredible job. So good on them. And we'll be tuning in on Friday. Let's get to the road ahead. We do that for Platinum Mitsubishi, family owned and operated by lifelong Calgarians. That's pretty rare these days. Love that. Mitsubishis have the best warranty in the business, 10 years, lease and finance rates starting at 0.99%. And they want you to check out that Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, Canada's best-selling plug-in hybrid SUV. It's Platinum Mitsubishi, 2720 Barlow Trail, Northeast. Road ahead is the mini gauntlet run, Huska's Nightmare! Victory, defeat. That's how it's gone. A great start. The middle, we'll see.
Now they
difficult to be sure.
I think we're looking at this as if you win half, you're probably feeling okay.
Oh,
You
right.
probably
If
want
they
more
come
than
back
that.
with 6 out of a possible 12, that's a win. This is the toughest road trip of your entire season, and you've got 5 cup contenders in there.
Yeah. So do you think they can win 2 out of the next 3?
I want to see what Carolina looks like tonight. I think they're dropping the puck in about half an hour. But it really looked like they started to hit stride, and maybe it was just the Whalers uniforms and the headbands on Thursday, but they were great.
They were
Rantanen
dazzling.
looked good.
They were dazzling the Sabres with style. They
Because
never had a chance.
they've been a very good team for much of the last half decade, but Rantanen arriving, everything was a little unsettled. It looks like they really clicked into gear on Thursday. It would be quality points if you could get any out of Carolina. Philadelphia will be an interesting one because it's going to be all the storylines of the trade, Pelche, Kuzmenko, Farabee, Frost. That'll be an emotional one, I'm sure. The weakest team on the road trip by a mile, but again, that's on paper. We'll see. I don't know that the Flames can take anyone lightly. I wouldn't suggest they could. And then you close out the road trip with a team that I think quietly has been one of the best teams in the NHL all year in the Dallas Stars. And we got to see in front of our own very eyes of the Four Nations, sort of the public, I guess, learnings about, this Harley fellow sure is a good player, which the nerds have been saying for a while, Ryan, but excellent tournament.
People who never watched Carolina or Dallas came out of this Four Nations going, who is this Slavin and Harley people keep talking about? But, Slavin's been
Jarvis.
He's been a Lady Bing contender the last few years. Slavin plays a crap ton against very good players.
Great defensive.
He's amazing defensively and never takes penalties. Harley is almost as good. He's very good. I don't know if he's quite as good as Slavin, but that's just my Carolina bias showing. But that Dallas game could be really fun because for whatever reason, the Flames and Stars do not like each other. And every time they go to the American Airlines Center arena, where the hell it's called, the building in Dallas they play hockey in, those games are always incredible.
It's a great building too. Everyone stands in the third. It's rowdy. I haven't been. I'd love to go. That's on the bucket list.
It's
for sure.
The exterior, they've got this beautiful brick, white and classic brickwork. It's a gorgeous building.
After the road trip from Huskers Nightmare, they'll come home to play Montreal, Vancouver, Colorado. That Vancouver game could have huge implications, or it might not. Utah's coming. Colorado visits as well. It's a 3-game homestand, and then the Flames are right back out on the road. Toronto, Rangers, Devils, Islanders. And do you want to tell us what you'll be doing for that road trip? Or not?
We might as well.
Hey, look.
Considering who sponsored this segment.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm going on the road trip.
So thanks to Platinum Mitsubishi, we're going to have Pike on the New York swing. And with the new arena arriving, I know you're going to be excited to see the new Islanders rink that's only a couple of years old, amongst some other great rating opportunities.
Yeah, I'm going to be checking out MSG, Prudential, and the Belmont Arena, the new one.
UBS.
Checking out the only arena in the NHL older than the Saddledome, checking out the NHL's newest arena. And basically trying to not make a nuisance of myself in the Big Apple. So it should be a lot of fun. We have some cool ideas we're finalizing for what we're gonna do for content while I'm away. I'll do my best not to get arrested or to get in trouble.
I don't worry about that.
I'm going straight to. I think I land in New York on St. Patrick's Day. A couple hours before the Leafs game. So I'm going to do my best not to make a nuisance of myself in the most Irish city outside of Ireland.
I was told
on
that,
the continent. So
don't go full Pinder. That's what the kids say.
I've never gone full Pinder. That's why
that's
how
you survived. Yeah, you're still around.
That's gonna be
RJ tried to go full Pinder once. Jax tried it. Very poor results, and other people try to do it. So big thank you to Platinum Mitsubishi, and we look forward to that coverage coming up. Pike, that is your road ahead. Okay, so we talked about this contest this afternoon. 2 games without a goal. Ryan Pike tweeted this today. I don't know if Yasmin has it or not, but nobody tweets out random stats faster than yourself, Mr. Pike Bomb. First time the Flames have been shut out in back-to-back games since November 16th and 17th back in 2019. There used to be a team in Arizona, kids, and they did blank the Flames 3-0. And then the next night it was 6-0 in Vegas. There's been a lot of ugly losses in Vegas. Goodness.
Yeah, that was part of a 3-4 without goals. I think 15-16 they had 2 games without goals, and I think the 12-13 that year where the wheels sort of fell off and they started the rebuild. I think that was the year they also went 2 or 3 without goals. So
Well, and I look, I mean, every game's different, but Carolina statistically is one of the tougher teams to score goals on. That's who they have tomorrow in a back-to-back, albeit one for Carolina as well. But there's two ways to look at it. You could spin it that, hey, they get to get right back at it. And the other is, ooh, this is not the right time to be facing Carolina. Yeah. Pick your narrative. They're both there for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's this is a group, as we mentioned, that has to play a very specific way to win. And I think the good thing for them is that they've been able to play that way more often than not this season and have success. So it's not a foreign concept to them, but it's also, as we've discussed, if I tell you have to play mistake-free hockey in order to have a chance to win, that weighs on you. It's
just hard to do against really, really good teams that have more skill than you, that are cup contenders. What you're asking for is an almost perfect performance. Like, to your point, there has to be almost no blemishes.
Yeah, their margin for error, both within games and I would argue in the playoff race, which again, it's insane that we're talking about this. I think it speaks to how well they've done figuring out who they are and what they are, that we even, there's as we're discussing this, they were a point out of a playoff spot. Granted, Vancouver plays later this evening, so maybe it'll be a little bit different by the time they drop the puck tomorrow. But it's the situation they've earned themselves into, but they've earned themselves into it by playing a very, very, I think, physically and mentally taxing style of hockey. And at a certain point, I mean, I'm sure Rec could speak to this. The 04 team is very similar to this, where they had the benefit of having a Kiprusoff and a Ginla that could keep out pucks and get key goals at key times. But if you don't have that and you have to play that playing style, at a certain point, the mind and the body are just like, okay, I'm done.
It's a very hard way to win games when you have less skill and you have to be incredibly patient and play with great structure and get saves. It's not easy at all. And I think it gets magnified when you're up against the best teams in the league. Like two of the ones we've watched in the last 3 nights and another one tomorrow.
And coming off 2 weeks off, we're no longer in, nice to be here territory, for both, I'd say this, Washington does not take the Flames lightly. Washington, I think, saw the Flames and got beaten by a Flames team that executed their game plan very well. Yeah. But Washington wasn't exactly a pushover. But every team, there's no secrets in the NHL. It's a copycat league. Every team does video. Every team has, a Cale McLean or a Trent Cull or whoever who sits you down in the room before the game and says, boys, this is what the Flames are going to try to do to you. Don't let them. Yeah. And the Flames have one way to beat you. And if they can do what they do well and to sucker you into playing their game, you're done. But if you can keep the Flames from being locked into their game plan, you can beat them.
Yeah, teams with more skill, if they can dictate the terms of the game, they're going to beat the Flames a fair amount. And that's not a knock on on Calgary. It's just the roster's not, flooded with super high-end, talented, offensively gifted players. So to your point, they have to play low-event hockey and be almost perfect if they're up against a very good team.
And that's the thing, like, we'll, as we get further into the season, probably, especially after the deadline, and we start looking towards the end of the season and the draft, we'll get into the weeds in this, because that's what we do.
Yes.
But, Zane Parekh could be an A-level difference maker for this hockey club.
Yes.
And I think Dustin Wolf has proven, at the very least, he's an A- difference maker, if not an A-level difference maker. Like, he's a special player. But okay, great. Do you have any more? Can some of these, some
of them score goals?
They have so many. Forwards. If you have a friend, guys, who follows the Ontario Hockey League, they've probably been obnoxious to you about how many good prospects the Flames know right now. Yeah. And one of them is Parekh. They got Battaglia, they got Muse, they got Misa, they got a whole bunch of good players in the O. Mm-hmm. Can any of them turn into, right now, I think they're trending towards being Zari or Coronado level
middle six guys.
Middle six, good secondary players, guys that you don't build a line around, but guys that can elevate a line. But do they have any guys that are Kachuk or Gaudreau level? Yeah. I would argue no. But I think we also spent a couple years before Gaudreau won Hobie Baker Awards going, I don't know, could he do it the next? So you never really know how guys are going to adjust to the NHL, and totally. I still think Coronado and Zari have that next level of the game. But I think if you're the Flames, the good news is you kind of know what you need to be to win. But if you're the Flames, if you're Craig Conner right now, you're probably going, okay, is there a way you can take the bones of this team and get a little bit more goal scoring throughout the lineup.
That's the challenge.
That's the difference. Because you can defend. You can play
you got
with
a goalie,
the best.
You got a good coach, I think.
Can you outscore them?
Yeah, I totally agree. And Gridden's a part of that. Basha could be a part of that. Hanzik seems like the forgotten guy, given it was only a couple drafts ago. But, that's a guy that's got some pedigree and some high-end tools that, I think is probably more of a project than a instant player. But there's some guys. If any one of these young fellows wants to turn into a difference maker, they're going to get paid politely here because they're in short supply as it stands. Speaking of difference makers, Alex Ovechkin scored again today. 11 now back. We've got all kinds of images. The goal itself.
That's goal.
Let's start with the goal itself.
Million.
Yes, and then we'll move from there. As Ovi and the Capitals did not win today. They faced a red hot Tampa team. Hagel scored in 4 straight. But here's Ovi doing Ovi things.
Reload. He fanned on it. Ovechkin to the slot. He scored. Alex Ovechkin.
Traffic turn, settle, fire. Beats Vasilevsky. 11 goals to go.
That's 884.
Incredible. So he would need 11 to tie, 12 to pass, if I'm correct.
I think
or
10,
is it
10 to tie,
11
to tie,
11 to pass?
11 to pass.
Yeah, 11 to pass. There it is. Incredible stuff.
So at what point does Gretzky just start following him around in a van?
5 goals.
5?
That is, he and Bettman will travel on a private plane following the Capitals when he gets within 5 goals.
That'd be like Grateful Dead style, where they just sort of get into like a VW van.
No,
they just have some interns with cameras being like, "What do you think of the record, Wayne?"
I think the great one deserves to be a little better treatment than that. I think Gary, he's got the wherewithal to provide some flights, I'm thinking, at this point. So congrats to Ovi. It's incredible. It'd be really fun if you could get it this year. He's tracking for it's so close to happening in terms of the pace he's on. There's if you needed a thermometer version of what we're talking about, there it is, Pike. And there's a crown at the top for the goal scoring king. 895 would be exactly that.
If you're him, if you get the record, and then right now the Capitals are the best team in the Eastern Conference. If you win another cup, do you play another year, or what do you do?
He's got one more year left on his deal, and I think he'll absolutely play that. And then depending on how he's feeling, he could take a run at 1,000 goals, which would be incredible. But I don't know. I mean, Father Time is undefeated. At some point, he's going to stop looking like Ovi. It's just this year he's been scoring like crazy.
You'll go from looking like Ovi to looking like you. Is that what you're saying?
I've never looked like Ovi in terms of shooting the puck, Pike. I do appreciate the very complimentary comparison there, but no. If he looks like 45-year-old Ovi, how many goals is that worth? 20, 30? I have no idea. So it's a fun storyline to follow. Let's get to the big slate tonight. We do that for Bet365, the world's largest sports betting platform. Open an account today with Bet365, and you can bet on a huge range of markets. Download the app, use that code NATION when you do, and whatever the moment, never ordinary at Bet365. Huge slate of games tonight. I believe, 6? And there's so many, it's all scrunched up. There's more than 6, my gosh. Oilers, Canes, right away here in about 15 minutes time if you're watching live. Montreal and Buffalo, 2 Atlantic Division teams trying to get out of their woeful ruts. Flyers, Jets, Sharks, Senators, Kings, Blues, I believe. Devils, Utahns. The Chicago Blackhawks face the Anaheim Ducks, and the Vancouver Canucks, a game that Flames fans will be paying attention to in the nightcap against the Seattle Kraken from the Emerald City.
And we got some footsteps because the Flames have 64 points. 1 point behind them with one more game played is the Hockey Club from Utah.
The Utes, yes.
2 points behind the Flames with one extra game played are the Blues. 5 back of the Flames with a game in hand are the Ducks.
Ducks are coming. Wow.
So the neighborhood's getting pretty crowded around the Flames and Canucks. The Flames and Canucks seem to be allergic to going on runs lately. Whereas Utah's won 6 of 10, the Blues are 5-3-2 in their last 10. Anaheim is very quietly won 7 of 10. I'm gonna have to write more complicated breakdowns of the playoff picture because all of a sudden it's becoming a bit of a party down there.
Okay, let's pick one team right now. If you had to just say the Ryan Pike 2000 IQ Genius 10,000 processor selecting one team to win the final wild card in the West. You noted where Utah is. You've seen what Vancouver has been and what they haven't been this year. And we've watched the Flames really struggle here in the last 2 games after a very impressive win over Washington. Pick one. I don't want any explanations. I just want spit out the answer.
I think in Utah.
They're
finally healthy. They got a couple good goalies. They have that young core.
Yeah.
And of all these groups, I mean, St. Louis is sold off a bit. The Ducks have some guys they have to make decisions on. The Canucks, even with
they got decisions too. Besser's a free agent.
The old fashioned how do you lose both guys situation. They still might lose both guys, but I think they're in a situation here where you go, ooh, this could get weird for them. But yeah, I'm thinking Utah.
I kind of feel like Utah is the team with the momentum right now, but the deadline's yet to unfold. We'll see. St. Louis has made a lot of moves for a club that's been out of it and now suddenly very close. I don't think they're going to stop now. And we'll see what the Flames do on Friday. Never mind Vancouver.
Which late game are you watching?
I'm actually going to the Wranglers game, Pike. Our kid hockey team, which is why I'm wearing the Glen Lake hoodie. We're going to have a high five tunnel with the Wranglers before they head out.
Those are always fun.
Kids love high fives. So do pro hockey players, I'm told. So I'm going to task you with giving me one player to watch closely. Is it a Hunter Prstevich? Is it a Hanzik? Is it a Stromgren? Who should I be keeping my eyes on?
Hanzik's injured.
So don't be watching. I'm
going to go Prstevich. I really love Prstevich's details. I know, like learning how to play. You know, especially he was all offense in the O, and he was a hell of an offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're, as you mentioned, all gas, no brakes,
learning
how to use the brakes a bit is the learning curve, especially against grown ass men doing it for a living. I think his details are so much better than I expected to see from a guy in his 20-year-old year. So I'd say watch him. I also really like Stromgren's details too. I think Stromgren's probably if you're going to have one guy and completely decimate that roster, just steal someone and just have the team just be whoever's left. I think Stromgren's the guy that he touches so much of everything they do. So those are my 2 guys. I cheated and said 2.
No, that's good. I'll take it. I have 2 eyeballs and I can pay attention to more than one player. So although I'm probably just going to be dealing with 9 and 10-year-old hooligans. So we'll see. Thank you for that. Look at this. Hey, do you like pale ales? Do you like blondes? You pick one, I'll get the other. This is our great pals, Origin Brewery. You know the story, 5th generation farmers. People find they're like, this barley you're growing is like the best in the world for making beer. Like, really? Oh, okay. And they're like, well, geez, maybe we should make malt. And then people are like, this malt is like the best malt for making beer. Like, oh, really? Okay. Maybe we should try making beer. Guess what? It's really good. Great inputs, great beer. And we're super proud to be partnered with them. This is our newest creation. This is the Afterburner Pale Ale. And this is the 1-year-old jazz standard for us, the Barnburner Blonde. You didn't answer. I didn't let you answer.
They're both good.
They're very different and very lovely.
It's like asking you to choose between your children.
Yeah, I can't do that publicly. So I can't do it at all. I'm kidding. I'm joking. Yeah, settle down. So yes, if you're looking for these, you can definitely head to the tap room in Strathmore. And of course, check out Origin Calgary. Starting to invade the big city with their delicious beer. Are they? It's true they are. Also, you can order, go to originbrewing.ca for more information. You can shop there. Origin Calgary, I was telling you about it. Pretty deadly. It's 943 28th Street Northeast. That's 943 28th Street Northeast. You are running low, and I'm going to let you take some of the fridge home tonight.
Nice.
He's happy.
You
still get to invoice for me for this.
We're lucky enough to partner with people who make really good products.
Yes,
the beer works, guys. And we know several of our buddies in the comments have tried both and have favorites. They might be making teams at some point, but
I just want everyone to be happy. I want the pale ale people to be happy, the blonde people to be happy. The 2 great beers, different styles, excellent beer. If it's not at your favorite liquor store bar, you better be talking to the manager. Get that Origin in. Let's go. Okay, final one. Let's get comments and questions in. Yasmin, what's happening in the chat that we've missed here in studio? What's happening? What are people wanting to talk about? This is Mark checking in. Anyone know if Pelche is getting iced up with fire? So have you checked in on Pelche? I know the paperwork was a nightmare for him.
He's finally playing.
Yeah. Did he play before 4 Nations? It felt like it took forever to get him on the ice.
He did not. I do not believe
it was like 3 weeks after the trade before you get on the ice. That's insane.
U.S. immigration, man. everything takes a while, even if you already had a visa.
I didn't have the Russian guy getting his paperwork done quicker than the Canadian on the bingo card, but I think that is the way it went.
Pelche is actually, as of right now, courtesy the Philly Inquirer's Jackie Spiegel. Pelche is on the fourth line for the Flyers with Nick Delorier and Ryan Poling. And Kuzmenko's on the third line with Travis Konecny and Scott Lawton.
All right. And they'll see the Flyers next Thursday, I want to say, next Tuesday. Will the Flames. So we'll get an up close and personal look at what's going on with Pelche and Kuzmenko. Next, what do we have? My question is, will Rantanen be a Kane when they play them this week? Yeah, it's tomorrow. Yeah. He will be, is my guess. And maybe a Flame. I'm less. Look, the Flames can love Mikko Rantanen and they can really want Mikko Rantanen. And if they do, I'd recommend they wait till July 1 and throw a bunch of money in front of them. The idea of trading futures for a guy that doesn't have a contract is not necessarily what I'd encourage someone where the Flames are at in their life cycle to do. And I still do think Carolina really likes the player. Looked great there Thursday. They want to get this done. We'll see if he does.
Yeah, and I forget who it was that mentioned this. I want to say Frank, but maybe someone else. Just the idea that, is Rantanen gung-ho about signing? Well, he's barely been in Carolina.
He's got Four Nations for 2 weeks.
He shows up. And then, so it's like, I think you want to get a sense of what the situation would be like. And, because of the Four Nations break, he just hasn't had a lot of time in Carolina. And if I were him, I'd be hesitant to lock in for a zillion years with a bunch of people I don't really know that well.
Yeah, he's got a week to use it.
Yeah.
He's got until Friday to make your mind up in theory. And then if he says, I'm not really ready to extend yet, the question will become, what do the Canes do? Do you say, we're going to roll the dice and play this guy beyond the deadline and hope we can convince him with a long playoff run to hang around? Or do they say, all right, let's flip this guy for some assets. In fact, we'll eat the salad. We'll make him a $2.5 million player and get a haul for him. Lots of different outcomes potentially there. Not sure that Calgary with trade is one, though. Jedi. What else, Yasmin? Calvin checking in. Let them develop. More minutes for Zeri, Frost, Coronado. See what we got for long-term deals. Well, I'm not. I know on Friday's show we talked about this a bit, but Zeri, Frost, and Coronado all need contracts. I feel like I've got a much better idea of what Zeri and Coronado are than I do Frost, given that it's been a very limited sample size. Yeah, he is a center.
Coronado's only played like not even one full NHL season.
No, but you know what?
Zeri's played 2.
I bet he's a right shot top 2-line winger that could flirt with 30 goals pretty quick. So I know what that costs and what that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, he's your third best goal scorer in his first
full
NHL year, second year pro.
Yeah. That's a guy.
There's guys his age that are still just puttering on the NCAA.
Right. That's fair. Exactly. Okay. And finally, last one. And I would wait. I'd punt on Frost, just like short term. I want to see more. And Zeri, I just love the IQ. It's always going to be a balance of the numbers. And as you always say, splitting the risk between the team and the player. So we'll see how that goes. Lots of work to get done this offseason. Dustin Wolf, the biggest probably, because they can extend him. He's heading into the last year of a very low sub $1 million a year deal.
Oh, he's going to go from being an extreme bargain to being Flames somewhat underpaid still. Yeah.
Okay. Next and final one. Boys, give us one good reason to be hopeful for the Flames picking in the top 10 this draft. This road trip, Kim, that would be it. If they've scored 0 goals in the last 2 games, they had a great game in Washington. If it doesn't go well tomorrow, all of a sudden you're looking at games 5 and 6 of a road trip starting to feel like must wins. And then the deadline is right after the Dallas game the following day. They're actually going to be set up in Dallas for the trade deadline, are the Flames. So if you were to drop 5 or 6 after winning the opener on this road trip, I don't think at all top 10 pick is out of the realm of possibility, especially when you told us about a Utah's coming, St. Louis is coming, Anaheim's coming. The gap isn't huge, but it's also not nothing. There's a lot of teams that they're going to have to fall below.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't think they draft top 10 this year. I think they're going to end up in that mushy middle and no man's land. But I think if you're looking for positives, the positive is a team that basically seemed like it was a sinking ship with rats deserting it, has turned into a team with a direction and a team with an identity and a team with probably more impactful young players on it than anyone really anticipated, and especially more than people anticipated this quickly. So
I will say this, for all the flowers and how hard they work, if they end up giving pick 11 to 16 to Montreal and barely miss out on someone like Roger McLean sliding into the end of the top 10, a 6'5" right shot center. I mean, that's the long-term piece that matters more to me. And I understand that you don't want the culture of losing, but contenders have stars. And that's where you draft most of the stars. Most of the stars in the NHL are guys that get picked in the top 10. It is going to be interesting if they continue to slide to see if they start to force the hand a little. But they're not there now. They're in the mix, and you can't tell this team to not try. They believe in their hearts they're going to make the playoffs. They're trying their asses off, and you tip your cap to them for that.
Yeah, all I know is there's the nice thing, folks, is that after like maybe 7 picks, 8 through probably 35 are kind of a free for all. So
this year,
like you could get someone at 20 with your own pick, or with
that you might have taken at 12. Yeah. Because they have New Jersey's pick. They have Florida's pick as well. One of them, Florida or Calgary, will go to Montreal. It's a good point. The top is fine, but not to be considered very strong once you get beyond around that 8 number.
And history suggests, just because of this is how it works, one of those top 7 players will be a complete bust.
Totally. Yeah.
And someone picked in the 20s will turn into Jake Ottinger or someone like that. And you'll seem like a genius for picking that late.
Guys like that. Pike, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Reminder, tomorrow's game is Carolina hosting Calgary, 3 p.m. Mountain start. That means we're probably gunning for about a 6 p.m. afterburner. So join the folks for that. I will not be here. I think we're finally giving you a game off. Or do you have one more?
No, that's my last one.
Okay. One last one for a bit. Then you're on the road. Look at you go.
I won't be able to.
Pike's going to be off.
I'll send something in while I'm on the road.
All right. Very good.
Some sort of it'll just be me holding that day's newspapers so that I'm alive. That's
good. We need to know that. We need those updates, especially with St. Patrick's Day in New York City. Yasmin, thanks for your fine work tonight. Anything else we need to get to that we've forgotten? Last call. Thanks for being with us. We'll tune in tomorrow with bated breath. We will watch Rantanen's Carolina Hurricanes up against Ryan Huska's Calgary Flames. See you, buddies.